I'm so happy. Yay! Oh, it's just so good to see all of you. Every Sunday is a reunion. Every Sunday. We make our way in person or online, and we reconnect by the strength of our communion in peace and in love. This morning, some have surely come grieving. Some have surely come worried. Some have come grieving, worried, and still holding tight a hopeful thread of joy. Some have arrived joyful. Aren't you all so happy now? You're really happy now, I know. Hoping and walking still beneath the shadow of worry and grief. We are as complex as the world that we inhabit. But for this hour, you are invited to lay your burden down. Amen. You are invited to give thanks. You are invited to breathe. You are invited to say to each other, welcome to All Souls. Where all souls are welcome, you are joyfully called to worship, dear souls. Welcome. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and we will join our voices here in Unity Hall and at home in singing For the Beauty of the Earth.
Now is the time in our service when we greet one another and share a wish for peace. Those in Unity Hall now, I invite you to turn toward Jesse and wave to our online congregation this morning. Good morning, good morning. And we'd like to ask if there's anyone here in the room or online for the first time. And if so, if you'd be willing to raise your hand or say hello in the chat, we'd love to welcome you. With a wave or a note in the YouTube chat, let us wish one another peace.
We begin by lighting our chalice, a symbol of our faith, a symbol of courage and liberation. Caitlin will light the chalice, has lit the chalice, and we will speak Mary Oliver's words together. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. For our candle of peace this morning, we'll let the children come on in. In preparation for the story for all ages, come on in, kiddos. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see all of you. Lucky you. Oh. All right, you're here in time for the candle of peace, and then we'll move on to the story. So we are all, of course, heartbroken over what we are witnessing in Ukraine. And so this morning, for the candle of peace, for the intention that we will hold through the course of our time together, we are looking to Ukrainian youth, teenagers, who wrote a poem in 2020 in the midst of the violence that they were already living with in their lives, that the rest of the world is coming to know and understand just now. So let us have teenagers in the Ukraine speak for themselves. Far away, the stars shine calmly and sparkle. Darkness falls over the sleeping land. The night knocks gently. Our homeland is dying like a candle that is being put out. Wind and rain are crying for human sins that will not be confessed, even at death. You think my dream is simple or just foolish to live in the world where there is no place for pain. Today we value simple things, mere silence, a deep night's sleep with happy dreams, visiting friends, and no more deadly blasts at all. No blood, no death, no groups of soldiers or flower wreaths, grass and fields at their fullest. Let's wish everyone peace. With all your mind and deeds and striving souls, let the morning be so calm and the sky so blue for all. Let the dove of peace fly and blow away the clouds. Let humankind come together with no doubts. And may the world and the congregation say, Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Carolyn. Is this mic ready? Thank you. So what if, at the close of our peace candle, I was thinking, what if we all just lifted our hands like this and send our wishes of peace to the people of Ukraine? Close your eyes, take in a breath, and send your good wishes. Amen. Amen. I have a quick story about a little, I guess you could call it a creature. I don't know. I never know how to categorize things, but it's about a moth, okay? So, the story of the peppered moth. It's a famous example of how natural selection works, and that's what's behind evolution. So until the early 1800s, most peppered moths were light with speckled wings like this one. The dark moth, spotted for the first time in the year 1848, was very rare. When you looked around, the moth color that there was more of, the moth where you'd see more of, had to do with how well they could hide from predators, birds that were trying to eat them. See? As beautiful as that bird is, he's going to try to eat someone. In the early 1800s, light speckled wings were really good camouflage on lichen-covered bark, so they could hide on the trees because of their colors. So light moths were more likely to survive and pass on their features to their children. This is natural selection. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, where there were tons of factories and lots of soot and junk in the air, it killed the tree lichens that coated the trees. And then the trees were covered with a layer of soot, which was dark. So in this changed environment, dark moths had the better camouflage. So they're the ones who could hide better from predators. So they became more likely to survive and pass their dark wings on to the next generation. In the mid-20th century, laws were made to reduce the junk in the air pollution from smoke and soot, which ended up reshuffling the colors of the moths. Peppered moths that you would see around, they were all mixed up. So sometimes I just like to think of this whole earth as one organism, one being, and we, the humans, the moths, were like its hands and feet, its body parts, growing and changing with the whole and affecting one another, right? Always in motion. That's what we are, always in motion. And speaking of motion, we'd like to sing you out to your faith formation sessions with Trees of the Field, which we sang for the first time last week. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will bring forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. To go out with joy.
It is so good to sing that song again together with children before us. So good. And so part of our commitment to each other, to this beloved community, is to bear witness to each other's lives. And we do that in many ways. But on Sunday morning, we do that by actually sharing with each other the joy and the sorrow that has filled the days since we last were together. And so we will begin then by the invitation to come forward and light a candle of intention. And while those in Unity Hall are doing so, those online could take that time to type into the chat what you might like to have shared live here in the service. And so we open this circle and this moment for your coming forward. Okay, let us prepare our hearts for what has been shared in all of the streams of communication. Anna asks for a prayer for wellness and survival with a smile. Mary asks for prayers for a friend of hers who slipped and broke his hip, but is recovering, for which we are glad, and joy for February birthday people. I hope they had good birthdays. Alexis shares that her baby is on the mend, for which we breathe a sigh of relief. Tony is happy to see all the smiling eyes this morning. Tony was faithfully serving at our entrance as a greeter and observer. Yes, Tony. Carol would like to thank everyone for the well wishes that came to John in his recovery. He is home and recovering and showing daily improvement, for which we give thanks, right? And then online, let me come all the way up. All right. Katrina is grateful for the peace and plenty in her life, and at the same time so sorrowful for those uprooted and craving that same peace in so many places. Lisa is grieving over the loss of a dear friend to pancreatic cancer. We will be reflecting on this very, very topic shortly. Cher shares her gratitude that she can use a walker and can bear 50% of her weight after 4 months. She says she will never take walking for granted again. Yes. Kate celebrates having had supper last night with friends in person. Oh, so wonderful. So wonderful. I think that is everything. Yes, that is everything. So then, let us prepare our hearts and enter into a communion of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, in all the ways that Spirit is known and named. We gathered this morning in this reunion to be reminded and remembered in these confusing times. May we hold through the world's challenges, through our personal sorrows, may we hold close the beauty of the earth. May we continue to raise our voices in praise, despite everything. We give thanks, we breathe, we look to each other and reach for each other in strength and care, grateful to begin again. We give thanks for this day and say together, Amen. And blessed be. Let us enter into a communion of silence. Amen. The reading this morning is by a poet named Tony Hoagland. This poem is so interesting because it was written in 2007. It was written as a prayer, a letter, a praise to life. And yet it is a poem, you will soon see, that is a lot about cancer. The incredible irony of this poem is that the poet, as I said, wrote it in 2007, and then in 2016 was diagnosed with cancer. And so all that he had imagined in this poem came to pass, as it does for so many of us. And so let us open our hearts again to this poem, this prayer, this letter to life and of praise. O life, how I loved your cold spring mornings of putting my stuff in the green gym bag and crossing wet grass to the southeast gate to push my crumpled dollar through the slot. When I get my allotted case of cancer, let me swim 10 more times at Barton Springs in the outdoor pool at 6 a.m. in the cold water with the geezers and the jocks. With my head bald from radiation and my chemotherapeutic weight loss, I will be sleek as a cheetah, and I will not complain about life's pedestrian hypocrisies. I will not consider death a contractual violation. Let my cancer be the slow-growing kind, so I will have all the time I need to backstroke over the rocks and little fishes, looking upwards through my bronze-tinted goggles into the vaults and rafters of the oaks as the crows exchange their morning gossip in the pale mutations of early light. It was worth death to see life through these optic nerves, to feel breeze from the fur on my arms, to be chilled and stirred in life's mortal martini. Isn't that the greatest line? I'm going to say it again. It's so good. To be chilled and stirred in your mortal martini. In documents elsewhere, I've already recorded my complaints in some painstaking detail. Now, because all things are joyful near water, there just might be time to catch up on praise. The poet died in 2018. We can all hope, with all of these things, having done all these things, that he hoped and dreamed and imagined, giving praise till the end. So I'm so happy to invite the choir forward to sing their song of praise this morning. Welcome, choir.
Friends carry over when I cry.
Thank you so much, choir. That was beautiful, beautiful. In the reading that Carolyn shared, I was struck by the poet's phrase, "When I get my allotted case of cancer," which 38% of us, more or less, will. Cancer is a big presence in the human experience. I imagine it has touched each of you in some way. To attempt to reflect with you about this disease is to strike a nerve this morning, to face messy existential questions that can't ever be settled. But that is what faith communities are for, isn't it? We face them together. I've had some personal experience that has led me to want, really has led me to need, to clarify what I can about cancer, where it comes from, and what spiritual context can hold it for me. So come with me, if you would. Consider what meaning there is for you. Let me begin with a little personal context. As I've shared previously, when I was 32, some abdominal pain led to the discovery of an ovarian tumor out of nowhere. It was considered a less concerning type of tumor, but one that had to be taken out along with the ovary that it was attached to. I had 2 surgeries, and I'm checked every year, now 16 years out. As a part of all this, they did some genetic testing to see if I was at risk for certain cancers. The genetic counselor sat me down and said I had some mutations. And I nodded, having no idea what she was talking about. Ah, yes, yes. I've come to learn that a mutation is when a cell is making its routine copies of itself. It makes a change in the DNA sequence, a mutation, and that change can get passed on. A mutation can beget further mutations over time, and it takes a certain number of mutations of certain kinds of cells to cause cancer. Those of us who are born with a mutation have what they call a head start on this process that might develop into cancer and might not. To keep an eye on this, I get an hour-and-a-half long MRI every 2 years at Smilo. And what they're watching for, they tell me, would be very treatable. There's something unsettling, though, about being anywhere on the oncology spectrum. During one appointment with a doctor at Yale, I said, yes, it had been years since my surgery and all was well. And he responded with 0 bedside manner. Yes, but one wonders why your body was making those cells and if it will make them again. Yep, one wonders. I've learned that cancer cells aren't their own thing, like an invading virus with its own properties. Cancer cells are our own cells, behaving cancerously. I really didn't know that. See, as our normal cells start to fade, they die to be replaced by a healthy cell. A cell that's behaving cancerously is one that doesn't die off and just keeps reproducing itself without limit. They call it a stuck gas pedal. When you look at it this way, talking about someone's battle with cancer is a tricky concept. As a journalist going through breast cancer once said, military metaphors were familiar, yes, but they stopped making sense when the war was me, my own body. Cancer is my own cells going rogue. With the experiences I've had, I know I've only had to dip my toe in the world of cancer, but it's made me want to understand it better. I know that many souls here have waded deeper or are wading deeper now, either as a patient or as a caregiver. You have my company and my care as we reflect together. In our early days of getting to know one another, Reverend Carolyn and I were struck by the fact that we shared in common a chapter of our lives in GYN oncology. We had worn our share of hospital gowns. By the way, I can't for the life of me figure out the buttons on those things. I cannot. I always end up looking like a disheveled scarecrow with how I put it together. And everyone else looks so beautiful. The medical circumstances that Carolyn and I had were different, but we have both sat in those waiting rooms, and we've asked the questions that arise. Carolyn shared in a sermon about her diagnosis that she never felt betrayed by her body. She said of her surgery, "My body healed slowly and steadily, intuitively knowing the proper course." I guess I felt a little differently. And that probably has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a little too much in my head. You may remember what my tennis instructor said when I was younger. He said, "You know, it's interesting. You play as if your arms are not a part of your body." Very interesting to watch. So I've always been lacking in sort of mind-body integration. And so I did feel estranged from my body the year of my surgeries, wearing all those clumsy hospital gowns. I remember it helped when my surgeon said while she was checking my incisions, "Your body heals beautifully." And whether or not she really thought that, she was so smart to say it. Because in my mind in that moment, I felt, so maybe there is something here to trust. It could no longer be a trust in comfort or control or longevity per se, but it was a body I could be with. If you haven't picked up from previous sermons, I'll tell you straight up that I'm mostly agnostic. And if I lean in one direction, it's toward faith in some kind of divine hum. If there is a spirit beyond nature and its evolution, I think it's a hum, a vibration that moves through all that is. When I'm listening for it, I tend to feel more connected to life and to others. I've felt this sacred hum at key times. And I have wanted to feel the sacred hum and haven't many times. It's mysterious like that. Jazz musician Abdullah Ibrahim adapts an idea of the poet Rumi when he says, "There's only one sound. Everything else is echo." My faith in this one sound is delicate. Most of my attempts to describe it, like this one, feel like I'm clumsily trampling on new grass. I've mentioned before that Einstein said, we each have to decide if the universe is friendly. He didn't really answer it for himself. Thanks a lot, Albert. I mean, he just put it out to us. But here's what I would say. If the question is to ask, is the universe dynamic and inviting? And is it home? My answer is yes, it's friendly. If it is to ask, is the universe gentle or fair? My answer would be unequivocally no. No, the universe is not friendly in that way. It makes no promises, except that you are a part of all this, and you are invited to grow and change with it. The faith I lean into has to hold in sight the sorrowful truth that even children suffer with internal biological causes like cancers. Such experiences reverberate here in our circle as I speak. We hold this tenderly together. I am not able to reconcile childhood cancer with a God who has control over nature at the cellular level. A God who has a plan. That's not to say it's impossible. It's just, I can't. I can't even. So, I maybe believe in a hum of a God, but I believe that nature unfolds of its own will, with what you might call a neutral process of survival and transformation, mutation after mutation. Like the moths in our earlier story, nature changes and pushes itself to survive, to thrive, and sometimes with exquisite precision, and sometimes with something that looks like, or maybe is, a mistake. For example, this colorful creature here, he thinks we've still got some kinks to work out in evolution. He says, 40 million years of evolution and I still look like this? And I agree. I've often thought in the case of humans, when are we going to phase out wisdom teeth and the appendix? They're just troublesome clutter. But I guess evolution's arc can't be judged by centuries. It is striking to behold this kind of transformation over a few million years. Incredible, really. It's strange to say out loud, but the evolutionary process that gave us humans standing upright is also the one that gave us the cancer that we know today. One of my best friends who survived childhood cancer and who sadly lost her mother to cancer when she was 7. She's been working on an amazing documentary about immunotherapy. I asked her what she's come to believe. And she said, well, when it comes down to it, cancer, like evolution, is life experimenting with itself and pushing to grow. So is cancer basically a byproduct of the natural world in motion? I think that's how I've come to look at it. I don't believe cancer is by design. And I don't believe that if there is a God, that God has any control over cancer. It's indiscriminate. It's nothing personal. But it is so very personal, isn't it? So very personal. So many of us have been hurt by it in some way. And we as a species have been moved to counter it. We've launched education campaigns for prevention. We've spent billions in research to understand it better. We walk and bicycle for miles raising money for that research. And we've improved outcomes. In the US, the rates of death from cancer have significantly dropped since the 90s. Between 2006 and 2015, fatalities have decreased by 1.5% each year. The author of the biography of cancer, The Emperor of All Maladies, says, just as cancer evolves and pushes for its survival, so do we. So do we. So if, as the poet says, this life is as harsh as it is exciting, how do we relate to that spiritually? How do we abide? One definition of the word abide is to continue without fading or being lost. That's where human community comes in. Because while nature may be impersonal, we are not. We are moved and changed by the force that is cancer. I'd like to take a moment for you to honor yourself or someone you know who's been affected by this disease. In the next few moments, I invite you to speak into the room or type into the chat their first name. The sacred space is open. Barbara, Jake. Blessed be each one. Sacred is the circle. The choir sang earlier, when the waters are wide, friends carry me over. We find ways to help each other abide, to continue without fading or being lost. When I worked as a chaplain, I was called to the room of a woman who had just died of cancer. Her spouse and young children had left. I felt nauseous at the thought of their broken hearts walking out to their car. And I soon realized I had actually been called there for the nurse. I think I'll never forget the way that she leaned over and kissed the woman on the head so tenderly and tucked her hands under the blanket. The energy in the room felt flat and humming at the same time. I spoke a prayer. Who knows what I said? I leaned into the hum. Who knows what it was saying? But I did sense it. In my memory, the room has gold lighting. In my memory, the nurse is sad and strong. I could tell she had known the woman and had been helping her to abide, to not be lost, until her final exhale into mystery. Maybe there is only one sound, and everything else is echo, a multitude of expressions of the same source. Her life, echo. Her death, echo. My life, my death, echoes of the same one heartbeat, the same hum. The circumstances of our lives are not always what we wanted. And they are definitely not always fair. But it sure is beautiful to push and grow as long as we can, in all the ways that we can. To hear that call of the wild geese, harsh, yes. Exciting, yes. Over and over announcing our place in the family of things. All the things. Blessed be. Amen. Let us share a moment of silence together. Amen. I'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and let's echo together a hymn to the vast and complex surroundings of which we are a part. One of our favorites, Blue Boat Home.
Caitlin will extinguish our chalice while we speak these words we speak week after week as a reminder. Our service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. Our chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion.
As we've been doing, let us reach out to our spiritual community. Because what a gift it is to sing with you and for us to be a part of a community where when the waters are wide, friends carry us over. Take this in and let it strengthen you for the week to come. And may that strength radiate to others near and far who may need it. Let us say amen. Amen. Please be seated for the postlude.
to us such a thoughtful reflection on such a difficult topic. I don't know how you did it. We are so, we are so lucky. Thank you. I love you. So beautiful. And Gary, you picked the perfect thing to finish with. Boy, that was just beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, the music always comes through. The choir, again, what a joy to have you here. Jesse, thank you. Tammy, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Paul and Bob and Jonathan and Tony and Mary. Takes so many people to make Sunday morning lift off. Yeah, I know. I know. Give me a chance, Bob. All right, so a couple things. Yes, Bob is waving the basket at me as a reminder to remind you how important your financial support is. So on your way out, you can support the congregation financially, or if you're at home, you know all the ways that you can do the same. I want to offer a stewardship update. As you all know, I hope, we are in the midst of our annual campaign, and the good news is that our goal is $410,000, and so far, our pledged commitments are $184,352. So we are not quite halfway. 58 households had made their commitments so far. Last year, 148 households did, so we still have quite a way to go. If you haven't already done so, I'm kind of begging you to do so quickly. Next Friday is when we are hoping to wrap up. So if you don't want to overburden an already exhausted stewardship committee, please get your commitments in. Emmy is in the building. I know that there are forms. If you want to just fill one out today, you can do so and throw it in the basket, but I don't know where those forms are. So there's that. Thank you for your attention to that. A reminder to make sure you read your weekly news. There's so much important information that is coming out these past weeks, so get back in the habit if you have fallen out. Next week, I am preaching. The title of the sermon is Embodying Peace While the World Wars. Another lighthearted Sunday morning at All Souls. I hope that you will come. What else are we going to preach on, right? What else? What else is there? So we laugh as we do, right? We find ways to do both. Next week is also daylight savings begins, so we spring ahead next week. So if you forget to change your clock, what happens? You miss? You'll be late. Right, you'll be late. I never remember you'll be late. Yeah, I never remember which it is. So change your clocks next week. I will look forward to seeing you, and we will continue to have sunflowers on our chancel and hope in our hearts every week. Go in peace, friends. See you next week.